where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad, and on this episode we'll be exploring number 8 from AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions, the 100 Greatest Love Stories of All Time.
All right, and number 8 is It's a Wonderful Life. Released in 1946, directed by Frank Capra, starring James Stewart and Donna Reed.
The synopsis for this holiday classic is as follows. On Christmas Eve 1945 in Bedford Falls, New York, George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, contemplates suicide. The prayers of his family and friends reaches heaven, where guardian angel second-class Clarence Oddbody is assigned to save George in order to earn his wings. He's shown a flashback of George's life. 12-year-old George saving his brother Harry from drowning, leaving George deaf in his left ear. George later preventing pharmacist Gower from accidentally poisoning a customer's prescription. In 1928, on the verge of traveling the world before college, George is reintroduced to Mary Hatch, played by Donna Reed, who has been enamored with him since childhood. When his father dies suddenly, George postpones his travel to settle the family business, Bailey Brothers Building and Loan. Greedy board member Henry Potter, who controls most of the town, wants to dissolve the company in the wake of George's father's death, but the board votes to keep it open so long as George is running it. George goes along with the plan and works alongside his Uncle Billy, giving his tuition to Harry with the understanding that Harry will take over the business when he graduates. Harry returns from college married and with a job offer from his father-in-law. George resigns himself to running the bank. George and Mary rekindle their relationship and marry. They witness a run on the bank and use their honeymoon money to keep the bank solvent. Under George, the company establishes Bailey Park, a housing development surpassing Potter's overpriced slums. Potter entices George with a $20,000 per year job, but realizing Potter's true intentions is to shut down the building and loan, George rebuffs him. On Christmas Eve 1945, the town prepares a hero's welcome for war hero pilot Harry, who was awarded the Medal of Honor for preventing a kamikaze attack on a troop transport. Billy goes to Potter's bank to deposit $8,000 of the building and loan's money and taunts Potter. Billy then absentmindedly wraps the cash in Potter's newspaper. Potter finds the cash and keeps it, while Billy cannot recall how he misplaced it. With a bank examiner reviewing the books, George realizes scandal and criminal charges will follow. Fruitlessly retracing Billy's steps, George berates himself and takes his frustrations out on Mary and the kids. George appeals to Potter for a loan, offering his life insurance policy as collateral. Potter scoffs that George is worth more dead than alive, refuses to help, and calls the police. George flees, gets drunk at a bar, and prays for help. Suicidal, he goes to a nearby bridge. Before he can jump, Clarence dives into the river, and George jumps in behind him and rescues him. When George proclaims he wishes he was never born, Clarence shows him an alternate reality where that was the case. George sees how he's had a positive effect on everyone's life and how much of a loss it is for him when he's not. He realizes the true meaning of life and runs back to the bridge, begging Clarence to return him. Reality is restored, and a grateful George hurries home to be arrested. Meanwhile, Mary and Billy have rallied the town, who come to the Bailey home and donate enough to cover the missing money. Among the donations is a copy of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, signed by Clarence, thanking George for his wings. A bell rings, and George's daughter proclaims, "Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings."
So I think that this was the first time I've seen this movie in a really long time.
It was the first time I viewed it through the lens of it being a love story.
True, and being an adult, I think, for me.
Okay. I've seen this probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 times, something like that.
Okay.
For a long time in the 90s, this was public domain. So literally every station played this movie during the holidays. I mean, like, you could turn off like CBS and go to ABC and it was playing on there. I mean, it was playing sometimes on more than one station at the same time. It was crazy.
And it's not like a huge holiday movie. Like,
I mean, it's about Christmas, but I mean, it's if you have a movie of this caliber and you can play it without any royalties, you're gonna play it.
Yeah, and this, in watching it at this point in my life, I really understand why it's such a classic. It's just a beautiful storytelling, like really interesting story. I didn't realize that Clarence's part was so small. It was only like the last maybe half hour or so of the movie, and the movie was pretty long. And just, it was a very sweet movie. It was really telling about how, you know, he really wanted to go to college and he wanted to see the world, but, you know, he'd made so many sacrifices for his family, and it's his family's name. But it doesn't mean he didn't have a good life.
Yeah, he just didn't have the one that he thought he was going to have.
Exactly.
And, you know, and it's one of those things, too, where it's like, who knows what his life would have been had he gone to college. He probably wouldn't have ended up with Mary and had a family with her. You know, he might have gone off to Europe and found that, you know, whatever it was that he was looking for was not there. I mean, there's all kinds of things. This movie is really about appreciating the things that you have versus the things that you maybe, you know, had to give up or whatever. I mean, he fails at times to see that he's got this very devoted wife.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he's got these, you know, all these kids who just absolutely worship him. And, you know, sometimes he has trouble seeing the forest for the trees.
Also, it's really kind of a testament of, if you treat people well, no matter who they are, you know, good things will come to you.
Yeah.
You know, if you treat people the way you want to be treated, it'll come back to you.
Yeah, he, like, through his, like, you know, in that flashback, you see he's done all these little kindnesses for no reason other than just being a good person.
Yeah.
He saves the pharmacist from essentially killing someone and probably going to jail. The pharmacist was, you know, very depressed over his wife's death and, you know, wasn't in his right mind. And, you know, George takes a beating from the pharmacist, frankly, because of, you know, he didn't do what he did. And then the pharmacist finally realizes what actually happened and kind of breaks down. And, you know, George, you know, he loses his hearing as a child because he jumps into a frozen lake to save his brother.
Yeah. And the whole town loves him because he's always been really good to each and every one of them.
And he's like, Potter really, like, controls the town. He controls all kinds of real estate. He builds substandard slums. And George is kind of the opposite, where he's trying to invest in the community itself and not make himself rich. He, you know, the housing development that they put together are very high quality houses, you know, that families can, you know, grow in and be safe in, and they're completely different than anything Potter's doing. And, you know, he's a well-respected member of the community. And that, you know, and in his time of need, instead of realizing, oh, you know, there probably are going to be people to help me, he just goes into complete despair. Whereas Mary realizes these people will rally
for him.
They absolutely will rally for him. And we just need to
ask.
We need to ask for help. And it's exactly what ends up happening.
And their relationship and their marriage is very strong. You know, they've been through a lot together, and
it's a pretty realistic. They don't sugarcoat a lot of stuff. It's like, you know, they never have a lot of money. Things are always tight, and they're always, you know, not, you know, as, you know, they don't have money to travel or do certain things, but they have a home that's full of love.
Yeah, it was a really sweet love story between the two of them, and really the love of his community for him, and vice versa.
Yeah.
One interesting fact was this was filmed during a heat wave.
Yes, I remember reading that, and they were dying.
Yeah. And then also, this was Donna Reed's first leading role. yeah, so it's a fantastic movie. If you have some time,
Yeah.
please take some time out and watch it.
Yeah,
You won't regret it.
There was one thing we looked up just because we were kind of curious, just to kind of showcase George's character when he turns down that $20,000 a year job. In today's value, it's like almost $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine just for the betterment of your community turning down a job that would make you nearly $300,000 a year?
He was very selfless that way.
He really was. I mean, he always, you know, he always tried to do the best that he could.
Well, I think that he comes from the mindset of, how am I going to enjoy all this money if nobody's around, if nobody can enjoy it with me? And I think that just kind of shows how generous of a person he is, and how contrasted he is.
And I think it just comes from his father too. I mean, that's he was running the business the way that his father ran the business, which was kind of what a community bank should be, and it's to enrich the community. I mean, it's kind of the kind of, really purest form of a bank is there's a central depository for all this money, and people borrow it as they need it, and it enriches everyone, and you pay it back. You pay back your neighbors for what you borrowed, and everyone kind of benefits from it. And those people that aren't, that have their money in the bank that aren't using it right now, they get a return on their investment because they're investing in other people.
It's interesting too, because he could have rolled the bus on his friend who lost the money.
It's his uncle.
His uncle. He could have rolled the bus on his uncle.
Yeah, what a dipshit Billy is, by the way.
Yeah, serious dipshit. Like, dude, what is up? But anyway, he could have rolled the bus on him, but he didn't.
It's family.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't going to do that. So, yeah, great movie.
Yeah. I gave this one a 71. Jerry gave it an 80. The list score is 75.5. So we scored this quite high.
Yeah.
And, this is the second time we've kind of had it on a list. It was also part when we did the holiday list. It was on that list as well.
It was. I can't remember what number it was.
I think it was number 1.
Was it number 1?
I think so. I can't remember either.
I can't remember. We've been doing so many movies. It's hard to keep track. Anyway, if you liked our video or you have anything to comment, please do so below. Also, if you'd like to contact us directly, please do so at ratingthelist@gmail.com. But that's it. For now, I'm Jerry.
I'm Brad.
And we're Rating the List. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.